They say age is just a number, that age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. We see in our reading this week that Caleb didn't mind his age at all. This senior citizen wasn't going to let his age slow him down one bit. When we first meet Caleb, it's in Numbers 13, when he was much, much younger. Moses was told by God to send 12 spies to explore the land of Canaan before the Israelites crossed over and took possession of the long-awaited promised land. They had just come out of slavery in Egypt. God had performed mighty miracles to rescue them. They were now waiting in the desert for their instructions from their famous leader, Moses. When the spies came back, and you'll recall that Joshua and Caleb were the only two out of the 12 who believed God could and would give them victory. The other 10 men said the giants in the land were much too big for them to conquer. In fact, they said they felt like grasshoppers compared to how mighty the other nations were. So, the people chose to believe the 10 men instead of God, and instead of listening to Joshua and Caleb. And then they wandered in the desert until the unbelieving generation died. The only two people who entered the land from that generation were Joshua and Caleb. Now we see Caleb, an old man. Well, I can call him that because he calls himself that. In verse 10 it says, "Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses, while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites were there and that their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said." See, the Anakites were the giants the 10 spies feared way back in Numbers. These giants that stopped the Israelites from conquering the land. That's who Joshua wanted to conquer. You see, I can just picture Joshua, a warrior, a man of God, longing to fight this battle. And he had to wait 45 years to do it. He wanted to prove that his God could have defeated the giants back then, and now he was going to prove it. Well, what made Caleb different? We see 6 times in the Old Testament that Caleb was described as the one who followed the Lord wholeheartedly. He trusted in God even when no one else did. Not just when he was younger, but now, right when he was young and in his ripe old age. God gave him the strength to do what his heart longed for. He trusted in God even when no one else did. Not just when he was younger and had strength, but now in his old age. God gave him strength to accomplish what his heart longed for. He wanted the land that the giants lived in. God told him to take it, and that's exactly what he did. He doesn't choose the plains or the land that no one lived in. No, he chose the hill country, the toughest terrain that had the toughest opponents. When Caleb looked at what land he wanted to take possession, he didn't look past the problems. He didn't deny that there was an enemy that stood before him, but he did have a different perspective. My Bible commentary says, he doesn't measure reality by the size of the problem, but rather he measures his problem by the size of his God. Giants are no match for men and women who trust in God's strength instead of their own. Because he trusted God wholeheartedly, Caleb was able to conquer any giant that stood in his way. No excuses, no limitations. Just simple trust and faith in a God who had proved faithful over and over again. What is it that is holding you and I back? Well, maybe it's not age, but maybe we're looking at a mountain and a giant, but we're looking at it with Israelite eyes instead of trusting wholeheartedly like Caleb. What is God asking of you and I to do? Is he asking you to wait? You know, Joshua had to wait a long time to conquer his mountain. And honestly, waiting can be the hardest thing for me to do sometimes. But we have to trust God's timing. We have to wait on the Lord. Maybe he's asking you to take a step of faith in a big and mighty way, and you are scared to death. Your heart melts with fear, as our word says. I want you to pray for courage and strength today to accomplish what it is that God is calling you to, and begin to shrink those giants in your life. You see, Matthew 17:20 tells us if we have faith as small as a mustard seed, that you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Ask God for a mustard seed amount of faith and stand back and watch him move. This next week is a bit different pace than what we've been used to. So for those of you that are a bit behind, use this week to catch up, or maybe go back and read your favorite stories like Rahab or the parting of the Jordan Sea that we talk so much about. But don't skip this week's reading. There's still some good truths, even though you can skim through some of those things that are just lists of towns and land and all of that good stuff. So I want to see you on Facebook this week. Dig in there, ask questions, reply to somebody else's comment, and I cannot wait to see you on Facebook on Monday, hearing all about what God is teaching you. See you next week, guys.